One of the best parks in America, and my personal favorite park is Dollywood. This is a theme park located in the Smoky Mountains with some great landscaping, food, and an overall park atmosphere that is to die for. But most of all, they have some great coasters. And with only 10 coasters in their lineup, it's impressive how well-rounded it is. So today, I'm ranking every coaster that I have been on at Dollywood. At the number 7 spot, I have Fire Chaser Express. And it's amazing that one of the world's best family coasters is in the last spot. And it shows how good Dollywood's coasters are. This is a Gertschlauer family coaster with a 70-foot chain lift and 2 incredibly surprising and punchy launches, one of which happens to be backwards. This coaster is one that is not the best in forces, because besides the launches, there is little to no airtime, positives, or anything else a good coaster has. But what it does have, it excels at, such as great theming, being just an overall fun coaster for the family, and getting the longest lines in the park. And like I said, this coaster has a better launch than some high-thrill rides I've been on. Flight of Fear, I'm looking at you. And while this ride does have a slight rattle, it's really nothing, and just adds character to the overall experience, making this my least favorite at Dollywood, and still one of the best family coasters I've been on. Up next in the number 6 spot, I have put Dragonflyer, which is a new age Vekoma family invert, and is probably one of the most surprising coasters I've ever been on. While it stands only around 80 feet in the air, which is already tall for a family coaster, in the back row, this thing has whip that's comparable to B&M inverts. When I suggested back row, I didn't realize that I was suggesting literally one of the best starting elements on a coaster I've ever felt. And no, I'm not kidding. This drop picks up a ridiculous amount of speed, and the next turn is super forceful too, and this sequencing is just perfection. The rest of the ride is also full of a lot of fairly intense turns, and on top of all that, it's glossy smooth, and has very comfortable lap bars and trains. And really, if this thing didn't only have one train and atrocious operations, I could lap it all day long. Getting into the top 5, I have a very hot take, which is Wild Eagle. This is a B&M wing coaster, and it was the second that I have ever been on. And if you know me, you know that while I think B&M loopers are good, none of them are great and outstanding rides, with the exception of a few inverts and floorless coasters. And while Wild Eagle is just that, a smooth, reliable, and fairly forceful B&M. And I will admit though, that this ride does have some sneaky good elements. The 0G roll really surprised me, and my butt was out of my seat for a solid 3 seconds. And I already love Gatekeeper and Valraven's Airtime Hill, so this is right up there with them. And finally, I love the trains on this coaster. And while they're not the best in the park, they are some of the best that a B&M has done. And they fit the ride perfectly. And like other wing coasters, this ride also is super photogenic, and it's very intimidating looking at it when you walk around the park. So overall, this is just a basic B&M looper, but it's still a fun ride nonetheless. Now for my number 4, I have yet another coaster that blew me away, which is Tennessee Tornado. This was one of the last coasters built by the legendary Aerodynamics, and it shows, because with my least favorite coaster being Corkscrew at Cedar Point, I thought that this would just be pure pain the whole ride. But from the front row to the back, this ride is surprisingly smooth, and I found myself really enjoying this short but intense coaster. The first drop is, hot take, the best in the park in my opinion, because you get a lot of speed with that turnaround, and then you get flung into the over-the-shoulder restraints with so much force, and the fact that it's in a tunnel makes it even crazier. And then, the next 3 inversions are a powerhouse, filled with some great whip in the back and positives in the front. And overall, this coaster really saved the Corkscrew model for me, and is one of Dollywood's best hidden gems. Finally getting into the top 3, I have yet another coaster that surprised me, which was Mystery Mine. This was my first coaster by Gertschlauer, and it left me wanting to see so much more of their work. I knew nothing about this ride going in, and I'm so glad that I did. So if you want to be surprised for your first ride like I was, I would recommend skipping this segment of the video. But anyway, I thought that this ride went straight into the lift hill, but the dark ride section really surprised me and I absolutely loved it. And then the fun little outdoor section had some solid airtime moments, but the finale was what really got me. The vertical lift with the screen above you is so enjoyable, and then the fire aspect was also a great touch. But I didn't know that there was going to be a freaking twisted vertical drop, so that really left me speechless. And the following two inversions are great, somehow filled with great positives and hang time all at once. And while I talked about the theming, I want to really mention how much work Dollywood has put into this, because it really shows. Even the song that plays while you wait in line is so catchy, I was humming it all day, making this a coaster that you should never skip when visiting Dollywood. For my number 2 coaster at Dollywood, I put a ride that surprised me probably the most out of all the coasters in the park, which is Thunderhead. And if you have seen my video of my reaction after getting off this ride for the first time, then you know that this coaster genuinely shocked me. And I won't lie, when I got off this thing for the first time, I thought it was the best ride in the park. And right now, I still think this is the best wooden coaster I've ever personally experienced. During my first ride in the back row, this coaster proved that it is just pure non-stop action. I mean, it probably has the best pacing on a coaster that I've ever seen. It plays high off the ground in the beginning with huge swooping turns that give airtime going in and sustained laterals through the entire duration going out. And the second half is similar to something like Mystic Timbers, where it plays low to the ground with quick airtime pops and two of the most sustained lateral moments I've ever felt. I mean, these two turns right here are comparable to the Beast finale with their insane laterals. And with some of the most comfortable restraints and even a really cool station flyby, I don't blame anyone who says that Thunderhead is their favorite coaster at Dollywood. And to nobody's surprise, my number 1 coaster at Dollywood is the legendary Lightning Rod. This is a coaster that has only seemed to get worse for coaster enthusiasts, because while it opened as the first launch wooden coaster, that launch was slowed down significantly because of reliability. And then this year they finally replaced that launch with a chain lift, and that's how I experienced it for the first time. And while it did feel a bit slow in the mornings, this thing still hauled during my visit, and in my opinion, it is still a top tier coaster. Every element of this is focused on airtime, and every element excels at it. From the sustained and trippy wave turn, to the powerful off-axis hill, to the legendary quad down, this ride really has it all. And I'd also like to mention that if you take away the coaster from this ride, it is still perfect. The name, the logo, and the trains are amazing, and some of my favorite in the world. And they also fit seamlessly into the Jukebox Junction section of the park that they are located in. And while Dollywood could have just said that it was themed to cars and called it a day, they instead went all out, giving this ride an elaborate theme and queue that's interesting to look at and be in. This is also a coaster that is definitely a front seat ride, and you have to be sitting on the right side for this one hill right here to show its true power. And overall, with all the airtime, speed, and more airtime, this makes for one heck of a good ride, and the best coaster at Dollywood. If you have made it to the end of this video, then thank you so much for watching. And if you have been to Dollywood as well, then tell me how you would rank these coasters, and if you agree or disagree with any of these ranking placements. And the reason I didn't have Big Bear Mountain on this list is because during my 2 days that I had there, it was closed for the entirety of them, which really sucks, but hopefully I can get on it next time I go. And we would also appreciate if you would like and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more content like this. And with all this said, we will see you later. Peace!